Thank you very much. Wild Beasts, Albatross. Okay, excellent. I hope you enjoyed that. Your introduction to Wild Beasts?
Yes, thank you.
Jolly good. Now, in 1976, in a huge drugs bust called Operation Julie, which involved 800 police officers around the country, 100 people were arrested for producing and distributing perhaps £100 million worth of LSD, acid. At Bristol Crown Court, 15 defendants received substantial prison sentences, some as long as 13 years. Leif Fielding was sent down for 8, and 30 years on, roughly, he's written To Live Outside the Law, which is his account of his life and time spent in custody and his life generally. So people often use the term hippie, but would that be to describe your lifestyle, sort of hippie lifestyle you had that led to this conviction?
Oh, unquestionably, yes.
Yes. In fact, by the time you were subject to this bust, you were doing two things. You were helping to distribute LSD, but you were also running, was it Reading Health Foods?
Reading Whole Foods.
Whole Foods, yes. So that's a strange combination that people are sort of concerned about what goes into their body. They'll take E, but not E numbers, and you're getting organically grown food, but you're also buying chemicals produced in somebody's...
And homemade chemicals of the finest quality.
Yes. So how did you get there? You in your book, you describe your upbringing. Sadly, your mother died when you were young. You had as I think everybody here, you had a horrible time at school. And your father had a new wife who you met on the Isle of Man, which is another link. Yeah.
She was a Manx woman, yes.
Yes.
Technically, I think the term is a wicked stepmother.
Yeah,
there's a theme emerging.
Yeah, there
here,
is, yes. Keep away from the Isle of Man.
There's a semblance of Bob Dylan
Yeah.
as well, if you explore that.
But anyway, you got as far as going to Reading University, as if I read your book correctly, you hadn't really had any involvement with drugs until then, or nothing to speak of, and then you had your first go on some acid. And your life was transformed, really, from that point on, wasn't it?
It was transformed completely. Reading was a bit of a backwater in those days, 1967, and we knew that drugs existed, but we didn't know anyone who took them.
Yes.
And we asked, and there were rumours. We tried to chase the rumours down, because the more you find out about something, the more you want to see what's going on.
Yeah. So
and we couldn't, and then suddenly...
Yeah.
Sorry,
No, I was interrupting you, but you were sort of basically looking to have some cannabis or something quite mild, but
yes,
somebody happened to
right.
have acid, and you took some.
You've preempted me.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's right. Yeah. We thought the people upstairs, they were suddenly behaving a bit oddly, and we thought, oh, this is it, baby. Let's go and see if they've got some cannabis.
Yes.
So we traipsed up the stairs, and excuse me, do you have any cannabis, please?
Yeah.
And then I said, to show I knew what I was talking about, the resin, you know.
Yeah.
And they said, no, we haven't. Oh, dear, you know, we're in an embarrassing situation. We're standing on the doorstep. There's these two guys looking at us. We're just sort of trying to find a remark to retire gracefully. And he said, I've got some LSD, but I suppose that's too strong for you.
Yeah.
And so reflexively I said, no, of course it isn't.
Take it the whole time, yeah.
So we took it. I hadn't a clue what I was doing.
Yeah.
Not a clue. First drug experience. And, well, you probably shouldn't say this, but it was wonderful. It was amazing.
Yeah, well, you say in your book you not only enjoyed it, but you wanted everybody to have it. You became a sort of an evangelist for acid.
I think an evangelist is a pretty good word, yes.
And you offer quite long descriptions of your acid trip, that and other trips. Do you still remember these? It's like recalling a dream from 30 or 40 years ago.
They're not really... Well, from 30, 40 years ago, but I wrote about those a long time ago.
Oh, you had the notes to refer to. You give a sort of almost a textbook description of what of being a present dweller, people who dwell in the present, which leads to a lot of crime. You don't think of the past, you don't think of the consequences.
That's right.
Was that from taking acid, or was that just from your general state of mind, your approach to life, would you think?
I think the approach to life was conditioned by the taking of the acid. I wanted to be in the present.
Yes.
And I tried not to think about what was happening in the future, and the past is done, you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And the way I thought you can best be in the present, where every day is different, is keep on the move. So I lived on the road for a couple of years. And
then eventually when you're back in England, we're moving the story on, you're involved in this drug distribution network, which was focused on by Operation Julie, all these officers underground, undercover, and so forth. Now, what was your role in this? You had different roles at different stages of this operation.
We're talking about quite a long period of time.
Yeah.
7 years the conspiracy ran for. I wasn't involved in the first couple of years because I was travelling. I was in the Far East for a while. And then when I came back, one of my old friends said, I've got a proposition for you, Leaf. And I'd just split up with the girl I loved. Well, she just left me, actually, and I was back from the Far East thinking, what do I do next? And so this proposition sounded like just the right thing.
But again, did you pause to think, well, liking taking acid is one thing, getting involved in an organisation that's going to manufacture it or divvy it up and distribute it, that's laying me open to quite serious consequences.
Well, you could say I hadn't really thought it through.
There's one account of, I suppose it is an acid trip, but when you have a cut in your hand, when you're doing some chopping up of acid, so you have a huge quantity of acid enters your system.
Yes, there's a massive amount.
And in consequence, you knock everything on the ground and you lose quite a lot of the drugs, which could have had a fantastically serious consequence in the sense that drug dealers are notoriously impatient with people who waste their drugs or don't come up with the money. So
you're thinking perhaps of the drug gangs these days. Don't forget we are or were a bunch of hippies.
Oh, you were gentlemen drug dealers in those days. Yeah, Andy.
So are you saying, Leaf, that your mission, as it were, was ideologically driven rather than money driven? To be involved in what became known as Operation Julie?
Certainly, to begin with, yes. That's not just me, but all of us.
But did you make money out of it?
I made some money, but I think I've worked it out.
More than Reading Whole Foods would have made.
Reading Whole Foods was getting going, but it wasn't really making money. But when I added up, my brother, come from a very respectable family. My brother, like my father, was an army officer. Yeah. And I think over the time that I was doing it, he probably earned a bit more than I did.
And then you got arrested, and as I've said already, you pleaded guilty, I think, at the Crown Court, and you got 8 years in prison. Were you expecting more than that, or was that...
My lawyer had said you can get anything between 6 and 20.
Yeah. So 8 was quite a reasonable amount, then.
Initially, I was relieved. Oh, only 8.
Anyway, let me just ask you about your imprisonment. So assuming you are this respectable and were this respectable person merely manufacturing or distributing a harmless activity, you nonetheless were in prison as a result of it. How did you cope with that?
Well, I'd recommend prison to anyone. It's wonderful.
You should all go.
Yeah.
Emma, have you been in prison? It's the new black.
No, speaking seriously for a moment, prison is best avoided.
Yes.
Don't go there.
Yeah, okay. So what's your attitude now? This is, you've moved on. Your book sort of ends with that part of your life. So yes. Have you sort of turned over a new leaf, or are you do you still run health food store? What's your activity now?
I sell organic food in France where I live. I'm still doing that, yes. 40 years later.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, I'm still a pioneer because the part of France where I live, they don't do vegetarian, they don't know about organic.
Yeah.
It's
And why have you written this book? Is it a warning? Is it a boast? Is it just of interest? Is it again a financial thing? What's the reason for that?
Well, it's not a boast. It's kind of a cautionary tale in a way, but I would think now. When I first wrote it, I wasn't thinking this. I just wanted to write it out of my system, a kind of catharsis. But I think it's an interesting piece of social history.
Yes.
It's a bloody good story.
It's a time that's gone.
Really
well, it's obviously made an impression on Andy.
I've really enjoyed it, and I really admire you for daring to live differently, Leaf.
Thank you, Andy.
I was interested to know where you stand on that now. How do you regard drug taking now, such as acid? Would you say people shouldn't do it, or you still, as it were, would like to be part of a campaign to liberate the drugs laws?
Well, my own opinion, I won't put forward. I don't take drugs anymore, as it happens. But even the drugs that I really disapprove of, I don't think they should be prohibited because the social costs of prohibition are worse than the social costs of dealing with the problem.
So we should have a sort of libertarian attitude. So if you choose to take heroin, cocaine, acid, cannabis, or whatever, we make our own
I would
decisions.
say beyond drugs, I would say in life generally, do what you think is right and take the consequences.
Okay, all right. Well, we've had a libertarian view expressed forcibly here today. We're going to have some more music from Wild Beasts. Couldn't let them go without hearing another track from their album Smother. They'll be playing the Big Chill Festival Friday the 5th of August, Field Day Festival London on the 6th, and End of the Road in Dorset on the 2nd of September. They're here in Loose End Studio. Should mention we've got Hayden Thorpe on guitar and vocals, Tom Fleming on piano and vocals, Chris Talbot on drums, Benny Little on guitar, Katie Harkin on keys and sampler. So what was it this time?
A song called Loop the Loop.
Loop the Loop. Take it away, Wild Beasts again.